before we get started, I know we spent a little time getting to know each other. Uh, so we did discuss a few challenges in the pre-work, right? So we said the challenges are that you don't see people, you are not able to read, read body language. There could be cultural challenge, language challenge. But what, in addition to this, could be the challenges that can happen and can get pronounced in a virtual communication? What do you think could be the additional challenges over and above what we discussed or what we shared earlier as part of the pre-work?
I think it's Tamanna. I think, for example, if you're doing like a training session, similar to what you're currently doing, engagement becomes a challenge, right? Because no matter, it depends on the platform, of course, that you're using. Zoom is very interactive, but if you're using anything else like a Cisco WebEx or a Skype or a Hangouts, uh, interaction becomes limited, and then what tends to happen is people are doing their own thing. They are off the video. They are even though we've already stated let's not multitask.
Right,
Don't know what's happening behind the video, right? Unless
right.
of course you call out and the person responds and all of that. So interaction, I think, is an additional challenge.
Okay. So that's very specific when we're talking about, let's say, meetings and trainings where there are more people and not necessarily everyone is clued in and people may be multitasking. Okay.
Correct.
Um,
Yeah.
okay. What else do you think could be the challenge? Anybody else would like to share?
Hi, this is Vishnu. I think meeting etiquette. Lot
Mhm.
of people mute, unmute, video on, video off. So that possesses that gives a lot of disturbance to the flow of the training itself.
Right.
And the
Okay.
background, you see a lot of people moving here and there, and so on.
Right. Okay. Okay. Again, very specific to, let's say, trainings and meetings. Nivedita, you want to share something?
I think the biggest challenge is whether your words have landed. So it could be a meeting, it could be an update. There's a huge, I mean, when you're talking face to face, from the sheer response, even the quirk of an eyebrow, or the way your face muscles are twitching, or the way you're nodding or you're not nodding, you
Yeah.
kind of figure out whether what you've said has landed, or you need to either elaborate or give, I mean, just supplement it with some information. But in a
Right.
virtual platform, you're absolutely clueless whether the person accepts, rejects, understands, does not understand. Unless you solicit feedback, you're absolutely unsure. So what I have noticed that progressively as the meeting warms up, like initially the energies are high, but because the person hasn't been getting any kind of feedback or even positive strokes in terms of it becomes tentative after a while, and this whole aura of unsure through the discussion that I'm really not sure the direction in which it is going. So that's something which I have observed over the last few months. I think now I can safely call it a couple of months at least. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. So yes, getting feedback in terms of what the other person's thinking and has the message really landed and has the tone of the message been conveyed properly. I think that continues to remain a challenge in virtual, and especially given more and more of us, we may not be doing as much videos, but we've started to rely a lot more on written communication. So we're using written collaborative tools. So again, that becomes a bit of a challenge when we are communicating either with a group at large or even with individuals one-on-one. I think that continues to remain a challenge.
Also, I would like to specially add, I'm sorry, Lochana,
Sure, please.
I want to be direct here. Sometimes, the speaker also, the person who's actually driving the session, or vice versa, people who are participating do not have limit of how much they have to speak. And what happens due to technology challenges, you can't stop them. You have to tell them, like, for example, right now I'm barging in, probably you don't even realize that I want to talk to you and I'm raising my hand. I'm just
Right.
saying that, it is difficult. We have technology limit. How do you push back and say, okay, bas, enough? I mean, you have I'm just sharing my views.
Sure, absolutely. So yes, I think it can pose a challenge, especially if there are people, if you're not able to read what the other person is, that the other person is getting bored and the other person is tuning out, if you're not able to read that, or even if you're not able to read what the other person wants to speak up. So there are a few things that can be done, when you are doing virtual meetings per se. But as a one-on-one virtual conversations, I think that's what we're going to spend a little more time discussing, because it goes a little deeper than just the body language and the tone, as well as the inability to see people. So it goes a little deeper than that, and we're going to explore that a bit more in detail. So what I'm going to quickly do is we actually have a case study for all of you. What I would request is Shrimoi, is the case study active? Okay.
Sorry, I was talking and I was on mute. Yeah, it is active. So they should be able to access it, right?
Right. So everyone, so I would request all of you to just log back into Knit Learn and keep that page open. You should all be able to see the case study. It would have unlocked itself. And what I'm quickly going to do is I'm going to split you guys into 2 groups and create breakout rooms. Amidst yourself, if you can just read the case, discuss. There are 2 questions right at the end. So just jot down whatever your points are. You can use a screen share, or one of you can share your screens. Screen sharing has been enabled. So one of you can just share a Word doc, screen share it and write down your points, or maybe make a note of it on your notepad. And then we'll come back. So we'll take about 15 minutes to do this, and then we will get back and do a quick debrief of this. Right. So I'm going to quickly divide you guys into 2 groups. Just give me a second. The minute I divide you into 2 groups, you will get a notification which will ask you as a pop-up saying join the breakout room. So you need to say okay, so that you move into the breakout room immediately. Right. So let me just do that right away. Okay. I hope you guys had an interesting discussion. Just hold on to those thoughts, whatever you guys have discussed. We will be discussing it in a little while from now. So so before we go into what the rest of the discussion, I just quickly wanted to touch upon the other challenges, and I think this is something that people had also spoken about, and in some way was coming out even during this particular case study. I didn't realize my video was not on. Okay, is primarily the fact that of course there is going to be lack of feedback, which is what we mentioned in terms of saying how do you know what the other person's thinking or reacting to what you're saying. There is sometimes lack of empathy also, because you're not able to see the other person and see the other person's situation. If it is a written communication, there are a lot of times where there's a lack of emotion. And most importantly, there is lack of connection and commitment. So it's very easy to connect with someone virtually and to start a conversation with someone, let's say over an email or a text or WhatsApp or an IM. But we also realize that these tools are very difficult to build trust and build deeper relationships and deeper connections. And that's where the virtual communication ends up causing a bigger problem than just saying, oh, I'm not able to see the other person or I'm not able to get the feedback. But the real problem is that if there is no previous or prior relationship built, or no effort made to build a relationship with the person in front of you, all the mediums, and especially virtual mediums, will suddenly seem to be the most inappropriate mediums to use to have a conversation. Okay. What I'm going to quickly talk to you about is, while I say overcoming these challenges, but it's a very interesting framework. I just wanted to quickly check given there are quite a few HR and L&D folks in the group, how many of you are familiar with this model? Seen, read, heard? You could quickly just raise your hand. Okay, Tamanna says yes. Okay, Shravani raised her hand. Okay, have not heard before. Asmita says yes. Okay, I have. Right. Okay, so we're all in some ways familiar, at least I think quite a few of us are familiar with this particular framework, which effectively talks about the four sides of communication, right? So just quickly touching upon what it really means. Okay. So what are the four sides that we're talking about? So we're saying the first is the factual level. So what is it as a sender I want to inform someone about, which are usually facts, data, or at least in my view, some kind of truth. The second is a self-revealing layer, which talks more about the emotions, the intent, and maybe the baggage which I'm carrying for, or I'm trying to convey, or I end up conveying. The third is the relationship level. So what do I think about you will also determine the way I communicate with you. And appeal is what is it that I want to make you do. So what is the thing that I want to do, whether I want you to take an action, not take an action, I want you to do something about it, not do something about it. So all of these are what are the four different layers or levels in which any sender or any communication starts to happen. So the sender has four levels, or rather four mouths, which are each of these levels through which he's communicating. And the receiver, if you look at it, also has these four levels with which he or she is hearing or reading, right? So when at a factual level, a receiver is someone who's probably just hearing for the facts, or rather the truth or the completeness in that information that you have shared. At a self-revealing level is trying to understand the emotion or the intent behind the message. At a relationship level, of course, based on my relationship with the sender, the particular message that has been sent across will decide whether I feel happy, whether I feel sad, whether I feel accepted, whether I feel patronized. How do I really feel about it? And the appeal level is where I'm trying to understand that, okay, now what should I think? What should I do? How should I feel after this message has really been sent? Right? So this is in very simple terms, it's a four sides model, which talks about the four levels or the four different ways in which a sender can convey a message, and the four different ways in which the listener can listen to the message. Interestingly, it need not be a direct to direct mapping. So I could be talking from a factual level and someone else may be hearing it from an appeal level. I could be talking from a relationship level, someone else may be reading it at a factual level. So it really starts to impact the communication that we end up having with the other person. Right? Now, let's go back to the case study that we had, right? Now, let's look at this. Now when we put this model, we realize that both Richa and Smita were talking from two different aspects, right? If you remember, the emails written were exactly the same, right? So in both situations, the emails were absolutely the same, but the emotion behind the email were two different emotions that were running, right? So if we want to go back, let's go back and see. Let's try and map that what did each of them do at their own level, or which level were they largely operating from when they were having this communication, and what could they have done therefore to really improve their communication or avoid this kind of a misunderstanding. So I'm going to quickly put up an annotation, which is just a simple text box right here for us to start discussing and typing. So what do you think Richa was trying to convey, let's say at a factual level? Was she trying to convey something at a factual level? Did she convey something at a factual level?
She has a project from TA. She has a proposal from TA Associates, and she needs to submit it by Wednesday. That's the fact, right?
That's it. Right. Proposal to be submitted from TA to be by Wednesday. I'm just using shortcuts.
That's fine.
Right.
And another fact is, oh no, then that's not a fact. Oh, yeah, that's it from my side.
Okay. Right. Someone raised their hand. Priyanka, would you want to share something?
From Richa point of view, the fact is she is considering Smita to be, to be suitable for it, and it will be opportunity for her, a growth opportunity, a good opportunity.
Is that a fact?
No, I disagree.
No.
Not a fact. It's an opinion.
Opinion, okay.
And it's probably therefore talking
Appeal.
about the relationship, because she
not appeal.
It would come under relationship, because that's what she feels about Smita, because the first thing she says,
yeah, it's her opinion, correct, that she's suitable and she can do it.
So it works. So one is she thinks that Smita can do it. She has trust in her, she has past experience with her, and therefore that operates from a relationship level. The appeal level is that this is going to be a good project for you because it is a great exposure for you, and therefore I would want you to take it up, right? So there she's operating in both levels when she's thinking about giving this project to Smita. Okay. Sorry, let me just try and minimize you guys here. Okay. So from a relationship level, we are saying past experience is what is determining it. And appeal is exposure, right? And great opportunity. Right. Now, what else from Smita's perspective? What is she revealing? What level is she sharing messages from?
At a factual level, she says that she's already inundated with deadlines, and which Richa is also in the know-how.
Okay.
She's overburdened with the work. Like she's
Too
already
much. Another deadline approaching, right? Correct. Now, the fact that she's overburdened would it be a fact or would it operate from a different level?
Not a fact.
I think it will be self-revealing.
Self-revealing, yeah.
Yeah, correct. So it will be from a self-revealing level because she feels she's overburdened, whereas, that's the emotion that she's carrying, overburdened, burnt out, right? Right. What is the relationship level that she's hearing the message from?
That they haven't been thoughtful enough. They haven't understood her part of the situation, or they're not being caring enough.
Right. There is one more thing which she mentions in the case as an example. She says that she always does this. Right? So she always gives me work at the last minute. Why couldn't she share this earlier and let me know? Right? So it's again her past experience with her of saying, she dumps work on me. Right? And at an appeal level, is there an appeal that she's hearing from Richa?
There should have been. It's not there though.
There should have been, but it's not there though. Right. Yeah. Correct. So now if we try and break down this conversation in this fashion, right? What you realize that the entire conversation was happening a lot from the self-revealing and the relationship, right? And therefore, maybe as Richa being her manager, and I know we put extreme effort on leaders, but I think it becomes a leader's responsibility as well to ensure that they don't operate or they take care of the level that they are operating from. So I had Richard just somebody mentioned in one of the groups saying that had she just picked up the phone and had a conversation, maybe things would have been. What else do you think maybe Richa could have done? Because that's the first mail that Richa initiated. So what do you think Richa could have done, keeping this model in mind when she was writing to Smita?
He should have acknowledged, appreciated, or given a little bit of background to Smita, saying that, yeah, I know that you're working on AK and Sons proposal, and I understand that this is also due, but we've suddenly got a urgent requirement, and this needs to be submitted by Wednesday, and I know that you worked on this kind of then the whole concept of telling her what to do, right? But first the acknowledgement, the appreciation. Maybe Smita needs the validation, doesn't need the validation, that's besides the point, right? But the acknowledgement, the appreciation of work done, an explanation, using the IDA model, right? So
right.
You do the attention, interest, desire, action, whatever, use a model and mail the person that way.
Right. Sure. Okay.
What I would imagine that she probably would have begun the communication at a relationship level, in terms of precisely what Tamanna just said, that acknowledge that you're already overburdened and I know there's a deadline of hovering around. And then probably at a self-revealing level that what's happened is also something which was not really in her control, and it's just come her way. And then the factual level. So rather than the factual which was said, the factual would have been the third part of the communication and not the first.
So if you just notice, right. So if you just notice the gaps on the board, right? Richard never communicated or at least tried to convey from a self-revealing level, and Smita never heard the appeal, right? And which is something which was severely missing. So the reason Richa was keen that Smita does this work was because there was a background to the conversation, right? Because she herself wanted to prove her own worth, right? In front of her senior, she wanted to showcase that yes, she can do this project, something that she'd been vying for some time now, and that never comes across in the message. The same is the fact that while in her head she's thinking it's a great opportunity and exposure, she doesn't mention any of that to Smita, right? Instead of saying it's a good opportunity, as it's a good project, you should work on it, she needs to probably build on the appeal to say, okay, why do you need to work on it? Why this project is great? So if you notice the board, these two elements are completely missing in the conversation, which is probably what is the area where caused a lot of disconnect. So while Richa believed that she's working primarily from factual aspect, she relied heavily on the relationship without understanding what Smita was thinking about the relationship, right? So a lot of times conversations like these, where there is some kind of a background, where you want to get feedback, where you want to check with the other person, or at least ensure that you are able to convey your own emotions and intent behind what you're trying to say, because you feel that is what will drive the other person, or that is what will get the other person connected. You will choose to communicate in that fashion, and that's what you will need to reflect. So if you notice, Richa in the end says that, okay, now when I think back, she has been a little curt and she has been a little abrasive, etc. Right? So she never reflected that, okay, maybe that's the relationship that Richa, that's that Smita and Richa are on, where Smita is responding back to, being rude to her, being curt with her, not being nice to her, or any of those things, right? So that's probably the responses that Richa is hearing from Smita in the past. But she's not reflected on that. She has not understood what that could be, what the reason for that could be. And in nowhere in the communication is she able to reveal her true intent as well as create an appeal. Right? So, so just as a context to say that, how this framework really fits into a very simple communication that two people can have, which can actually spiral out into a miscommunication. Smita is on the verge of saying, I don't want to work with her anymore, I'm going to quit. And Richa is on the verge of wondering, should I even, maybe I should give her a, put her on a PIP or give her a very strong feedback. Whereas all of this is happening because they're operating from different levels or different ears and different mouths. So any thoughts at this point before we move ahead?
Yeah, Francis here. Just
Yeah.
wanted to know, is there any assessment on this particularly to understand from where we are operating more, the drivers which are there?
We will touch upon it when we do the communication styles as well. But it is something that honestly, all of us operate from all four, depending on what is the context, background, and the people that we are interacting with. So there is no specific assessment, but the communication styles link to these four in terms of what's your preferred mode or where do you operate from more often than not. I think.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. So, okay, let me close this. Sorry, just give me a second. My screen will continue to show. My screen will continue to show the annotations if I don't clear it. Just 1 second, and I'll be done. Okay. So what are some of the ways that which you can handle something like this? So first is check-in. So think, right? As a sender, always ask yourself, what is my intention and which information do I want to send, right? So if you look back, Richa's intention was that A, she should be able to project showcase herself well and her team well, and B, give Smita the opportunity to really grab such a great project and showcase herself, right? But none of these got conveyed in the message. It was hidden in her own head, but it never got conveyed in terms of words. As a receiver, it's also important to ask yourself, which ear am I listening from, right? So am I listening from a factual ear, from a self-revealing ear, from a relationship ear, right? And what is the information that the other person is probably trying to send, right? And how else can I understand this message? Sometimes when we get extremely disturbed about a particular message, it's equally important for us to reflect and say that, why am I getting disturbed with this particular message? Right? It could simply be your own state of mind, your own stress levels, your relationship with the other person, when that message may not be really that irritating, that disturbing, that upsetting, or in a different context or coming from a different person. Right? So what do you then do? You should constantly look at validating or checking back, right? So as a sender, you need to make your intention very explicit, right? So I want you to work on this project because we need to showcase that our team can handle difficult projects like these, and that this is a great opportunity for you to work closely with the senior leaders, right? The minute that gets conveyed, right? Smita probably will be in a better frame of mind to understand. She may still complain saying, I have too much work, but at least she will be able to understand the intent without questioning Richa's intent and saying that she's dumping work on me, right? Similarly, when the receiver, and part of the receiver, it's equally important to say that, so is this what you mean? Is this what you want me to do? I want to make sure that I've understood it correctly and this is what you're trying to say, right? So this becomes very critical in most conversations, especially even if it is a verbal conversation. It is important to actually ask or check back with the other person that, is this what you want me to do? Is this what I'm hearing correct, right? It becomes equally important because that's when you understand that the person's intent is something else, or what I'm understanding as an intent is not the case, and you're on the same page. So these are some of the things that we had discussed even in the pre-work, but I'm going to just repeat it again. So be direct in your communication. So when I say direct, I don't mean to say be curt, but be direct in explicitly expressing your intent. Don't assume that the other person knows the intent. Even after years and years of relationship, you probably still not sure what the other person's intent really is. Why are you sharing this information? Right? So be clear both in terms of your intent as well as the message and what is it that you want the person to do. So your intent and appeal has to be very clearly brought out in the message. Seek feedback and provide feedback. As a sender, it's equally your responsibility to ask for feedback. Have you understood this? Have you understood it in this way? This is what I intend to communicate. Have you got it? Right? So paraphrase it. Similarly, as a receiver, make it a point to paraphrase and understand and ensure that you're on the same page. Some general additional advices as well, or suggestions here, is of course to avoid usage of slangs or colloquial references. Sometimes they actually become very difficult for someone to understand what is it that you're trying to say by using that word, because they don't know the meaning, they don't understand the intent, and it can go into a loop, especially when you're dealing with people who are who in a formal setup, not necessarily let's say friends, but people in a formal setup, maybe your colleagues or stakeholders or so on. And always err on the side of being positive. So even if the message, even if you want to share something which is a little stern, a little firm, try and err on the side of being positive. So somebody rightly said that, why not start the message by saying, hey, Smita, you're doing a great job on the AK and Sons proposal. And I understand that, it is only final touches are left. And I hope you will be able to turn it around. And this is in addition, there is a new project which has come your way, right? That of course what it will do is it will tilt the listener's ear to more positive, put it in a positive frame of mind to actually hear more and understand a little better. And last, always seek clarification to better understand others, either behavior or responses, before we make an assumption or conclude that this is what they are intending, this is what they want, this person's always like this and always like that and so on. We need to step back and say, why is this person doing this, right? Not like saying, why is the person really doing this, but what is the intent behind it? And try and understand the intent so that you are able to take the right decisions and respond accordingly and respond correctly. Right? Thanks once again. Thank you so much for joining in, and please do leave your feedback. Again, the feedback module is accessible on Nityo, and the minute you complete the feedback, it opens up for your post work.